Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze. This is the day after the Bluegrass Wrestling Con there in Lower Ashland, Kentucky. I'm your host, Professor Jeremy Vilmur. Joining us now, Arn Anderson's favorite enhancement talent and one of Bobby Fulton's apparently favorite wrestlers, Bobby Blaze.
Hey, man. Professor, it was good hearing from you and talking to you and all the hard work you put in yesterday. I am about talked out, and I'm sure you are too, man, because of all the excitement that went down yesterday at the Bluegrass Wrestling Con. And like you said, it was in Lower Ashland, right down where I grew up at, man, right downtown. We'll get into some of the guests. I heard one of them describing his trip there. I don't know what the question was, but it was a pretty good answer, I thought, to what took place. But yeah, man, I can tell you on the air now. I don't know. It was kept a secret for like a half a day. It only lasted about a half a day. But as you know, and I'll get to all the thank yous and this and that in just a minute, because we are going to just do a recap of how awesome it was to be a part of this Bluegrass Wrestling Con. But, you know, Stan Hansen had to cancel for unforeseen reasons, you know. Mm-hmm. And by that evening, they had spoken to Arn Anderson. So I was leaving the camp, and someone let it be known, like, hey, we're talking Arn, and we think we've got him. And I was like, oh, man, that would be great. You know, I popped big time. Yeah. And they were in there. Several of the guys that were there yesterday were actually in, I think, Kingsport or Bristol last week for a event down there. And I had several messages from several people. Arn being one of them said, tell Bobby Blaze that I definitely said hello through a mutual friend. And anyway, by the next morning, they was like, man, Arn has a house show at AE, and he can't do it. And I was like, oh, you know, so we come close, man, to getting double A up here in Ashland, you know. And I couldn't say anything about it because we you know, who was it going to run and tell? I only knew the two guys that was, you know, doing negotiating, and they was kind enough to let me know that, hey, man, we might be getting Arn. I was like, oh, yes, you know. But, of course, we was disappointed that we couldn't get Stan or Arn, but both those guys maybe in the future come back, because when I mentioned those two guys, I got to give props to doing an excellent job. You heard a lot of the fun in the background when you was recording yesterday. Mm-hmm. Earl and Joe, man. Earl from the Time Warp, they put a lot of time and effort into this thing. They've been planning it for a couple of years, and due to COVID, of course, it got pushed back. And then Joe Pace from FTC Wrestling. And I'll say this, man, it was pretty packed, Professor. It's pretty packed, man. A lot of stars, a lot of fans.
Yeah, it sounded like a pretty good house there. You know, I used to do quite a few conventions, so I think I can kind of gauge by noise where, you know, what's going on.
Yeah.
Now, let's see. So we did get a chance to talk to a handful of people, which was fun. I do kind of want to bring up, you had just a couple of kids who wanted to be wrestlers come up. How did you meet them, and kind of what was going on?
Well, I could have picked any number of guests probably that may have wanted to do a podcast or whatever, but you and I, as it was going, I would cut away for a while, and you left the mic, you know, just kind of, you was on standby as I was, who we could try to get to put him in. And I can't remember who, honestly, I just finished up with, but these two guys were at my table getting ready to buy a picture, the 8x10s, and I just, when I spun around from the seat I was in to my gimmick table, I still had the headsets on, and I invited them over. You know, I just kind of went at it cold and didn't always get into the one guy, the older of the two, or looked to be the older of the two, real nice young guys. He's like, he would love to. And we end up getting, what's his name, young boy named Levi. Yeah. And you spoke to him, and I think the plan is, as we discussed off here, we're going to recap it all this week, and next week you'll be bringing up some of those interviews we got to do. But yeah, and then he actually, when they left, they bought the picture and they went directly over to the FTC table, and they both had a pack in their hands. So maybe we gained 2 listeners and also maybe a one potential student at the school, just when I spoke to,
Yeah.
But I saw him speaking to the school, rather. I gave him direction to where he was at. The FTC school had several people representing him there. As you got to speak to a couple of the people from there. And Earl, of course, had a big time warp table set up. I mean, they had a huge, several displays for that. Every vendor's table was taken, and I was directly across from 2 of my favorite people, man, and one of the best companies out there, and that's CollarxElbow. And we got to speak to Rod Hicks, the man there, and also Lemon Juice McGee. And I know you spoke to both of them.
Yes, I did. Rod Hicks was a little put out that, you waited so long to get him on.
I know. I did ask him early on, and Rod is Rod's a hell of a character, man. He's good. He's one of the good people out there. He's one of the good brothers, mm-hmm. And he knew how to time it just right, and he worked it in. You couldn't ask for a better person to, he knew what was up. He wasn't going to come on till the time was right.
Right.
I'll just say he's professional, and that CollarxElbow, Collar and Elbow, just good people. Like I said, I got me a new shirt, and actually we may have some new merchandise through them. They printed all my Blaze, the retro throwback shirts. That's who I got those from. I had for sale yesterday, and actually I've got a shirt. And you might be getting something you don't know yet, Professor, but I've got a shirt that says Life's a Work, okay? And I'm pretty sure I put you one back just to let you know. But I had those, and I got my original one several years ago. Collar and Elbow took me to, sponsored me to at the WrestleCade. First Lexicon, and then hooked me up when I got the WrestleCade with all my photos and T-shirts and all that on a handshake deal. But anyway, not to get ahead of myself, I bought several of these shirts, Life's a Work, and to show what kind of people that the Collar and Elbow are. I had mine on under my shirt, especially for them. I was going to pop them at some point in that show. I didn't know, directly where they'd going to be at with me. But anyway, Rod said, man, we didn't even bring you them shirts, Bobby, because we knew you was going to be selling them at this thing. That's the kind of guys they are,
Right on.
And normally they sell those at their events. But I ended up selling a couple of them, and I put a couple back. So I got to make sure I put you're an XL, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm pretty sure I put yours back. With that said, I want to say this. I did give away one in good brother kindness. We got to give this guy props, Jeremy, for helping us with the gimmick yesterday, and that was Brock's Boulder. He was kind enough to bring his computer and headset and get set up and log in so we could record, and we basically recorded off his the entire day because, you're a computer guy. We were too close together. It was too much static. It was too much backfeed. The mics that I had, and he had a professional podcast mic, but not for an open room mic like that.
Right.
So, Brox, thanks again. You're a good champion. Tell you this, pal, you better start defending that title. There's people out there wanting you, man. So get your butt in the ring. But he does get in the ring and train. I'll give him that. He better be ready for the next opponent, though.
Yeah.
And I don't know when that's going to come. But, he needs to defend that title because I know some people getting hot that he's not defended it yet or recently.
I go out of my way to try to cause as much heat between whoever I talk to in that market and Jock Sampson.
Yeah.
So, I was trying to put a burr under his saddle about him yesterday.
Yeah. Good.
Well, I figure, if nothing else, maybe somebody will kick Jock's ass, or Jock will get another belt to add to his collection. Win-win.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And Brock's first opponent was against Jock Sampson.
Yeah.
So, the last 2 training sessions, I'll say this, Brock's has closed out our Thursday training. We do a little segment like we have a show within the training, and I'll put them down. Okay, this is how much time you have, and this let's do this. And the last 2 times I've given Brock on this we'll call it a dark match show at the gym,
Sure.
And he'll have a match, and he'll get up and he gets on the mic and he closed out the show by saying, "Hey, now it's time to call out Jock Sampson because I want that FCT title that you wrongfully took, and I have the LG title that I rightfully won." And we may see that happening. We really might. So I don't know when, but yeah, I'd like to see that happen, and I'm glad you kind of probed him there because I think I mentioned it, which will come out next week. I think I said it when Casey King walked away. Casey, thank you for coming on to the podcast. I know you got to speak to him. I probed him a little bit, or prodded him a little bit about Jock Sampson as well, because Jock's got a rebuttal for Casey King, I think, coming. And we about had Jock on the program a couple weeks back, and again, something came up, family issues. And I hope all that's taken care of. It wasn't any, nothing to discuss on here, but he couldn't do it and said he would soon. And we're going to get him on here soon. He can talk all he wants about Casey, Brock's, and I got a good feeling. Especially, he might be talking. He'll say something to me, but I got a good feeling he's going to have a lot to say to you. I might have probed him a little bit about that too. So,
well, he and I have always been a little rocky. We started off rough and got worse from there. So, that's whatever. I mean, I don't know what he's got to prove he's such a big tough guy by picking on an old man with a bad heart. But okay, whatever.
Damn. Oh man. Anything else you remember about yesterday you want me to bring up? Because I got some other people we can give shout outs to.
Let's see here. Well, why don't you tell me a little bit about what was all going on there? Did you get to? I mean, obviously, we didn't get to interview like some of the guys that have contracts with bigger places.
Yes,
that's just a liability they can't. Yeah. Do. But who did you see yesterday that you did get to talk to that we didn't get to talk to? Okay,
well, so where I was at, I was right near the entrance, and had a really good setup there with FTC and the whole deal, and Time Warp, of course, and I appreciate that once again. Thank my brother. He come down, helped me set up, and start the morning off right, and meet a few people, and Judy Ray Hendricks also was assigned to some of the students at the school, and some of the younger and up-and-coming wrestlers all had people assigned to help each other out. They were to help the whole group out, and then when they weren't during that, they were to help individual tables and things. And like I said, I got Judy Ray helped me out quite a bit, and I appreciate that. With that said, I didn't get to speak to him, but I got to see him. Our boy Troy, one of our students, he got to be with Coco Beware, and Coco was on the far side of the room. He came in and he went right to his table. Of course, I'm sure he was very professional, and I heard that he had already sold 6 pre-sale packages, before he even opened the doors, which was good. Joe had told me that because I know my brother wanted to meet him,
Yeah.
So he kind of laughed and said, "Really?" And I go, "Yeah, it's one of his favorites growing up, Memphis territory." Anyway, so Coco, I didn't get to, I spoke to them on the way out. They were leaving like some of the guys had a fly out of Cincinnati that had come in. People had picked them up, and then they had a special van taking them all back together because they could, stagger instead of staggering out. They all kind of, when they flew in staggerly, I guess they all had flights leaving yesterday evening, so it was easier to get them back to Cincinnati to fly back home.
Yeah.
So, with that said, let me think. Godfather Brock's got to hang out with him, and Godfather had come up here to a show, the one FTC show that I didn't get to go to. I guess it was maybe right before COVID, and he done some things. Actually, I think he done something with Jock and Brock's, to be honest with you. But again, I wasn't there. I'm just trying to go off memory. Anyway, I got to speak to the Godfather several times. But then at the end of the show, as we're wrapping up, he and I ended up in a restroom together, and that's where we've done most of our talking. But it was just, you said don't talk to people in bathrooms and airports, and I said, man, don't worry, I'm not going to try to come over and shake your hand or anything. I said, I hope you did good today. And he moved some stuff off the counter. He was getting ready to drive, or actually get in a van to go back to Cincinnati as he had a flight back to Vegas. But we spoke briefly, very, courteous, very professional, and very nice gentleman, man, very nice. And I just, washed my hands and dried my hands and, went about my business. Then, of course, when he come out, like I said, where I was at that front end location, he gave me the office again, like, it's all good, So that was pretty cool. Lex Luger was there. Lex, he I don't know if I say it next week on the air or not. We didn't get the interview, Lex, but Lex got in Sleazy E, who you got to speak to. He has the handicap accessible van, if you will. Mm-hmm. So he went to Cincinnati to pick him up, and I'm not sure what the flight situation was. It was some kind of delay, and so he got there a little bit late. And he went right to his area, and again, he was at the far end of the building. And this building, Jeremy, it's downtown Ashland, and we were up, on the sixth floor of this thing, man, to do this wrestling con. And it used to be a big department store back in the day. It's a museum center now. There's a basement in the first floor, a mezzanine, and the second floor are all actually a historical museum about this, city of Ashland, state of Kentucky, all the pictures of the floods and the country music highway, and just all these different. It's a museum, legitimate museum. What's funny is I was talking to my best friend last night afterwards. The fifth floor was toys. 11, 12 years old. And they used to have an elevator. My brother brought this up. The two elevators, they were the old kind that they had. I'm so old, Jeremy. They had a lady that would, two elevators with two ladies, and you got on one and she'd go going up, going down, and they shut the old gate in front of the door, the old skeleton thing, is that old. And this little old lady would sit there, and she'd see them, because in the summer, hell, us kids, we'd run there right up and down the elevators until we got thrown out, they get tired of it, but you could ride the elevator to the fifth floor as a kid, 9, 10, 11 years old, and 12 maybe, and they said going up, and we go to fifth floor, and there was toys every fucking where, But anyway, the sixth floor, though, where we was at, my buddy and I, he had this great recall last night, and he said, he goes, what that look like up there? And I said, it's all cleared out. It was all, it was nice, and, it's a really nice area. It's part of their center now. They use it for this type of thing. And big, huge room with these big columns in it and this and that. He goes, because tell me if I'm wrong, but didn't we as kids sneak up there one day when they wasn't paying attention to the elevators and we got off? And I said, yes, we did. And he goes, you remember what it was? I go, yeah, a big-ass storage area that looked spooky as fuck out of a movie. And we was about, I was probably 10 or 11. My buddy was like 12 or 13. And we got up there, and it was like out of the Twilight Zone, man. We got up there in this big storage fucking area, like no lights on, but lights from the windows. And we goofed for a little bit until, of course, we got caught. Oh, yeah. But it's a really nice now, and they had a shit ton, I think 25 or 30 tables with vendors down there, man. Who else came in? Oh, I'll tell you what, man. ODB was there. She was there. I saw several people carrying her barbecue sauce, her meat sauce around. It was a whiskey based. I can't wait to ask a couple people how it was. I personally didn't get any, but she was a super sweet, nice lady. And she stayed busy the entire time. But she was there. Gail Kim and Angelina Love were both there. I got to say hello to them. Gail was with the table with ODB, and again, they was both very, very nice. But they were about 3/4 of the way down, so I couldn't get down there to him. You know, I just did a walkthrough. Actually, when I was doing it, I was returning a gentleman that left his picture on my table from another person, and I was looking for him because he took my picture, but he left Rhino's picture. I spoke to Rhino for about a half a second. That was about it. I hadn't seen him forever. We met many years ago on a JT Lightning show up at Cleveland Off-Road Wrestling, but, you know, I don't know. Rhino just, you know, he was there doing his thing. He was, you know, didn't get to talk, didn't ask about, you know, said, hi, how are you? That's about it, you know. Let's see. Who else do we mention there?
Yeah, you want to talk about the big one?
No. We're going to hold on to a couple. You kind of snuck one out there already. Let me think. I'm trying to Black.
Malachi.
What? Malachi Black was there. Everyone said he was super nice. I didn't get to speak to him. I know the two young boys. Caleb and Hunter hung out with him, and apparently he was showing them some videos and wrestling from over in Europe, and they all said he was a very nice guy. I saw him go by one time to the restroom, and I honestly didn't even see him come back out. So, you know, it's one of them things. I probably turned around and, you know, was selling something or talking to someone else, you know. Yeah. So and he was to my right, and it was actually a column. I couldn't, you know, sometimes you'll hear me on the recording when he was doing it. We was like, I see this person, I'm trying to get her over here, get him over here, but now they're behind a column, they can't see me, you know. Yeah. So because they had these big, they're probably, I don't know, 3.5-foot columns by 3.5, you know, big squared off, you know, columns that hold the building up, you know. Sure. Old structure. But yeah, so sometimes people was out of that peripheral. Let me think that before we get to them for a couple other ones, no one was very rude about anything, I'll say that. Jimmy Hart, so just kind of let you know, we didn't get to interview Jimmy, but Jimmy is the most energetic and kind-hearted and one of the most beautiful people you ever meet. I mean, he is just a beautiful person. And when we got there, we started speaking. You know, it's good to see him. I knew he'd come in the night before, man, and he was like one of the first ones through the door in there, you know, setting up his gimmicks, and just a super kind guy. And I said, Jimmy, I just kind of want to throw us out there. Is it possible, you know, if you got free time, could you know, do an interview or come on the podcast? And he said he could not. Due to the, you know, being under contract with WWE, they have to be very careful of anything they do that's not WWE related, media-wise. And he said, I just can't. And he said, otherwise, I'd love to. And I said, thank you, because it was no problem whatsoever. Let me tell you that right now, no problem. So anyway, as the show goes on, because we'd have loved to got Jimmy on here. Oh yeah. And here's what happened. As the show winds down, he went out of his way, come down to my table. We're kind of just, he's got his stuff packed up, and he comes over, and again they took several people back in a van towards Cincinnati, and he said, hey Bobby baby, he said, I just want to tell you, man. And he had my book. He said, I love this title of your books. He goes, I just want to tell you, if I could have. And I can't do a good Jimmy Hart. He said, but you know, I would have loved to come on your podcast, and I put over your books. I'd put you over. You know, I would have done anything for you. He said, but I said, Jimmy, it's no good. It's all good, man. You know, don't worry about apology. I understand, you know. But he was so cool about it to make it, you know, that other effort, like just letting you know, man, I'd have loved to done it to help you out, you know. And he's just one of them good people too that you meet in life, and then you see them in little things like this, and they still are, man, just so full of energy and loves the business so much still, you know. Pretty damn awesome. But yeah, we didn't get to get Jimmy on her, but man, he was probably, I don't know for what I could say. He was, again, to my left, a little bit out of my peripheral, but I knew the area he was in. He looked like he stayed more busy than about anyone, for what I could tell.
Well, now, I can't remember which of the guys, I think it was Earl I was talking, whoever picked him up, I was like, did you ever see Jimmy Hart sit down? And they said, just in the truck. That was the only time he ever sat down.
I went down Friday when Earl and Joe were there just trying to set the tables up, look at the arrangement, get the layout and idea, And Earl had already been to Cincinnati that morning to pick Jimmy Hart up. And he said it was like 7 o'clock maybe. I don't know how early it was because it's around lunchtime I stopped by there. And he had already driven him or went all the way down to Cincinnati, picked him up, driven him back here, and had to get him a room in Charleston an hour another direction. But when his answer was in the truck, well, apparently as soon as Jimmy Hart got in the truck, he started singing to at 7 o'clock in the morning, started singing all the way from Cincinnati to Charleston, West Virginia. And, so that's just kind of energy he has, man,
Oh, yeah.
But again, I did try to get him on here, as you know, and there was no heat or anything like that. No one was upset.
No, well, look, the WWE has like a social media policy.
Yeah.
They even let some people go over not shutting down their OnlyFans, or not their OnlyFans, but like their Cameo, whatever it's called,
a couple things they shut down.
Yeah, they told people like basically you can have your professional Twitter profile, but nothing else. And, obviously we run that. So, but no, it's, I get it. I think it sucks for creative people to get stuck behind a gag, but I get it. I understand it. You're
sure.
I think you even said it like, you go on, you do a show, and then it turns out that guy's been raping kids for 30 years or something. How do you get out from under that shit?
And that's pretty much what Hart said. It said, he said, Bob, you're out here trying to do something good, but for you trying to do it, there's other people that'll screw it up for everyone else, Yep. And my headphones were adjusting there. But he was super cool about it and everything. I mentioned Judy Ray. We had show pony Risa Ramon on from the school. I wanted to get her a little bit of airtime and interview experience, and I thought she'd done a good job for what I could hear on my end. Let's see, and she was all these people were big helps at the camp. The students rather were big help at the Bluegrass Wrestling Con. We got Casey King on, and we got Chance Prophet on. And then we had lemon juice, I want to call him lemon head on lemon juice McGee. I don't know if you saw those pictures. I did post some to the at Bell to Bell Bobby Blaze. He had that crazy ass suit on there. Actually, someone tweeted out this morning. Jay Downs Photography, I think, sent a picture of me and Jimmy Hart and me with Rod Hicks and Lemon Juice from CollarxElbow, and someone said, "Is that Ziggy Dice?" because of the suit. Yeah. Anyway, it could have been if you just went by dress style. So with that said, I don't want to don't want to leave anyone off here. We gave as many people as we could, and again, you'll get to hear directly from Earl and from Joe. You were kind enough. Him, and they were wrapping things up, and they were kind enough to speak to us because they had a lot of pressure, on them to finish up and close this thing out. But I definitely we wanted to get them on to tell them how much we thanked them and appreciate them doing this, and what a professional job they had done, and so they get to speak. With that said, our first big one to come on for me, and I love this guy, and man, I got to see Bobby Fulton, and I only saw a picture of him this summer when he came through he was having dinner with one of the promoters in West Virginia with his son, but he didn't actually come to Ashland. He was meeting his son in West Virginia, and so it's nice to see a picture of him, and always nice to say hello to him. He had a birthday in October, and I think that's the last time I texted him because his birthday is one day after my son's. So I always remember it for some reason. And like I said, probably because I love the guy too. He's a great guy. And that's Bobby Fulton, man. And he you're going to hear it. Jeremy is going to try to use his professor skills here and clean it up as much as he can. But as you know, or a lot of you may not know, Bobby Fulton has been fighting throat cancer for the last couple of years. And by God, if anyone can beat it, I think it's him. He looked good. He was moving around good. he was happy to be there, and a lot of people were happy to see him, man. And I asked him, and I knew I was taking a chance, but I said, Bobby, if you'd just like to come on and say a few words, I told him, and he knows what kind of person I am. Mm-hmm. I said, we've got an old school podcast, and if you could just let your voice be heard out there, I think it means so much to our fans. And I'm going to let you tell what happened from there, Professor, because I gave the headphone set, and you kind of tell the people, when I said clean it up, what you're talking about here. Because Bobby don't use curse words.
No,
Bobby does.
Yeah.
This Bobby does.
No, you know what? Bobby just, I don't think I said 2 words to him. He just kind of got on, put you over, and he was good with that,
Yeah.
His voice is a little soft. Like it sounds a little soft palated, so it's hard to pick out amongst the crowd noise. I'm going to try to get rid of as much of the crowd noise as I can.
Okay.
But whatever I end up with, it's going in the show because it's so Bobby Fulton.
Thank you.
It might be hard to hear, but, fuck it. It's still going in,
Okay, good. And that's what I meant by cleaning it up, cloud noise, whatever it was,
Yeah.
But he, I could hear him speaking pretty good where I was at, but I was right there beside him, listening to him and engaging in the just kind of my table where I was at. We were a few people gathered around, listening, wanted to hear what he had to say. To be honest with you,
yeah.
I think Casey and Brox and Judy Ray and my brother and maybe even Rod, one of them, slid over there and kind of. We wanted to hear what Bobby had to say, and it wasn't just because he put me over, and I appreciate that. I just wanted our fans to know he's alive and kicking, and he's fighting, man. And that was really good to see him. And he didn't have to do that, but he did. With that said, I know I've probably left off some of the stars. I don't have the paper in front of me. I've got a bunch of pictures and stuff in front of me. I'm going to throw this out there real quickly. Follow me on Twitter at Bobby Blaze 744. You'll see a lot of pictures where the fans tagged me in and some that I did myself on my social media from my table. Follow Jeremy at the Geekish Cast, but I also tagged in the Bell to Bell Blaze on the Twitter, and Jeremy, Professor's running that account, and he can put those all up. He's free to do so there and over on the Facebook page on the Bell to Bell, and also if we get around to it, folks, at the bell2bellblaze.com website, we do have some Blaze Bunch pictures. I got my group, my brother, Sleazy E, Judy Ray, that's my group, man, Casey King, So anyway, we'll get some pictures of them up. But with that said, what happened earlier was this. Magnum was there, man. Magnum TA, the man. Man, let me tell you, I didn't have any. There was this is how things work. I'm getting chills telling you about it. This is how things work. I was standing there at my table, and no one was in front of me. And I don't even think the people that helped me, they had kind of went out and was doing some things, and talking to other people or helping other people. And I was just standing there. And Joe comes by and he said, Bobby, no one's up there at Magnum's table now. It'd be a good time to speak to him. And he was at the far end. And I knew he had that line because, again, I could see some of these people. I knew about where their table were at and stuff. And so I just kind of walked up through the crowd. And I'm glad there was a really good crowd. It was supposed to be from 12 to 6, but from 12 to 3, it was a constant crowd. And around 3 o'clock or so, we got a few more people in, but a lot of the earlier birds, had kind of left. And so we kind of had a little changeover for just a little moment of time there. But in my story, I got up there, and there's Magnum. Now, I had met Magnum at in Smoky Mountain at the Carolina's Memories Tour when I wrestled Dan Severn. And that night, they honored several Carolina legends. Rip Park was there. Sandy Scott, and of course Magnum, and I'm leaving off a couple others, I'm sure, but they honored Magnum that night as well. That's the first time I ever met him, and I set my gimmick table up, and he came up to me, and I honestly want to say I said, Bobby Blaze, it's nice to meet you, but he come up the way I remember, he come up to me, he goes, hey Bobby, I've heard a lot of good things about you, before I could even, and that was just, I may have said, hey, I'm Bobby Blaze, but I think he just come right up, put his hand out and said, hey Bobby, I've heard a lot of good things about you. So either way it went, we met, and man, I just was standing there, didn't put my gimmicks out. I just was like, spoke to him, and I was like, man, this is awesome. And plus I knew I had to wrestle Dan Severn that night. That was on my mind, but so yesterday I went up to him and I spoke to him, and I said, I met you when I was at Smoky Mountain. I said, at the Carolinas Memories Tour. He goes, yeah, I remember you. I said, with Grady Cole Center. He said, yeah. And so we spoke, had a really nice little 3 to 5 minute conversation. And I said, Magnum, if you get a chance, I've got this podcast, and you're one of the most over names that we talk about on the podcast. I said, man, you're on one of our top 10s all the time. You and Tully. And I said, man, that's the age we deal with. I said, my co-host and partner will be madly crazy if I can get you on a podcast. I can't emphasize enough that we are right down your alley on your era of wrestling. And he said, well, Bobby, I'd like to give it a try, but I don't know. And I said, well, let me put it this way. I said, I'm right down by the bathroom, and you have to, when you come down that way, if you just take a moment, I'd love to just have you on. And he said, I'll try. So at that 3 o'clock hour, Jeremy, people started going to the bathroom. The talent did. They'd been sitting there since noon. Yeah. And, where I said there was that change of people coming in. Magnum came by, and I just happened. Now, my table was caddy corner to where we was doing the podcast from. I had like a little squared off area. So the actual table was sitting right at the entrance of. Now, when I say outside the bathroom, there's a long hallway that you went down, so I wasn't right outside the bathroom door. You understand what I'm saying? Mm. I was at the entrance that you go into the female and male bathrooms, further down the hall, further into the building. Magnum comes by on his gimmick. He's got one of those motorized things, and he gives me the nod. And I'm like, oh, I hope that means what I think it did. I hope that means what I think it did. And so, a few minutes flashes by, and I made myself stand by the computer, not more over there toward my gimmick table, And, man, he come out of there, and there you were on the other end. I had you on speed dial on my instant message. I like, Professor, here's so-and-so, here's so-and-so. And I couldn't even get Magnum out. I spelled someone else's name. And I sent a text, and I sent it to someone, and I can't remember who. Someone got someone else's text. They're like, that text went to me, and I'm like, what? I was trying to hit you up because I was so excited. But dude, he come around that bathroom entranceway, and I stood up. He said, what I need to do? I said, here, I handed basically the head. I gave the introduction. I don't even know what the hell. I mean, I know about what I said, but I gave that headphone sets, and I'll tell you this, Professor. The whole time you were speaking to him, and I don't even know what kind of question you were asking him. I do know this, though. He was looking me in the eye, and he was giving me the answer like I was doing an interview, like I was right there with you. And as we found out, we couldn't use both sets of headphones. So I don't know what the questions were. I can only hear him speaking to you. So lead us through what happened when I said Magnum's coming on. And did you pop?
Of course I did. Of course I did. I think
I love what you said afterward, So I think we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, I think we were already on when you said that Magnum was coming. Because I was just looking through the names of the files, because I think there's like a couple that I just named Bobby 1, Bobby 2, Bobby 3, and it's in one of those that's in there. But you put Magnum on, and dude was super professional. You know, he didn't act like we were bothering him. He just, hey, here's what's going on. What I found interesting is that he and Greg Gagne are working on a project.
Mm-hmm.
Where they are going back and getting permission from the families of guys who were wrestlers. It sounded like 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s.
That's what I gathered from what I heard.
And then doing merchandising with those guys. So, like Gorgeous George and guys like that. Now, I, of course, asked about Ray Stevens. And he said that he wasn't sure that they could find anybody who represented his estate. So, Bobby, if you want to score some points, hit up Rock Rims and see if he knows who it is. Because he said if we figured it out to let him know. Because he'd love to do. I'm not sure who outside of California knows Ray Stevens. I know he wrestled other places. I know he's a big star. But still, I don't know how regional that is, But, Magnum knew who he was. Asked Magnum who inspired him as a wrestler, and I got a surprising answer. Apparently,
who was that?
Reggie Parks used to wrestle under a mask in Mid-Atlantic.
I heard him say Reggie Parks' name. Again, I'm listening, but by the same token, he's talking to you, and I there's times I can't hear him either on my end.
Reggie Parks, I can't remember his the name he wrestled under a hood.
Yeah,
but he said that was his inspiration as a wrestler.
Wow,
so I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah, I don't want to give away too much. He does make...
No, don't give it all away. If you give it all away, you have nothing left to sell.
Exactly. I asked him about how the crowd was. He said it was good, but he couldn't believe there's a 6-story building in that town.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it my story. That's why I was trying, because I did hear him say that, something about that, but I knew I had to tell some of the history of that building,
Yeah.
It was called Parsons, and it was one that had, a floor strictly for jewelry, had a floor strictly for appliances. They actually opened up at one point a side store that was only a couple of stories high for furniture and appliances only. They got so big before they finally, many years later, shut down, But yeah, that's a big ass building for Ashland, man. And surprisingly enough, Jeremy, mm-hmm. That's not the tallest building in Ashland.
Really?
Really. Right down the street, the next block down, for years had the tallest building at 11 stories. It was the first, it was the second, it was the third. Now I'm getting wrong on my history here. I know it was at least the third, National Bank. Then it was Community Trust Bank. And it had when you look at old time stuff, and again, I'm giving away my age, they had one of those, clocks and, time and temperature outside of it, on the building, when I was a kid, and it finally went digital somewhere in the 70s. I'm sure those pictures are out there, and they're probably at the museum if I'd have went downstairs and looked. But that building had 11 stories. And then I'm going to get this wrong, probably late 70s. It could be early 80s. But I think finally the Sky Tower went in down here off of 13th Street, which is kind of about 2 or 3 blocks over from the exact downtown area, and I think it's 14 stories high. So we've got two taller buildings than that. And that is the I know the old bank building is 11, Sky Tower is 14, and I don't know the old Parsons building probably at 6 stories there, because they tore Sears down and they tore Penny's down. Penny's didn't have very many high floors, but the Sears might have had 5 stories. They might have been one under Parsons, if I'm not mistaken. So he a 6-story building in the town he was in, Lower Ashland. Yeah. So
when we I tried to get him, I don't know, we get maybe 6 or 8 minutes with him, and I tried not to keep him tied up too long, as soon as the conversation seemed like it was kind of stalling out, not even stalling out, as soon as the conversation was kind of just done and I didn't really have any more questions besides going, hey, remember that time you wrestled Tully?
Right.
It was, before I could start
that's what I was going, what I tell you on my end, I could tell that it was winding down, and I'll tell you how I knew that. because he was being a professional and he was being personal. And I could see it, hear it in his eyes, and hear it in his voice. He wound it down. And man, I'm gonna tell you, I couldn't tell you how many people told me how much of a gentleman he was, how kind he was, how professional he was, and man, I think you're going to hear that in the interview. Like I said, from what I could hear on my end of it, and so. Jeremy, you probably had the line of the day after we got off, and I want you to go ahead and surprise, tell the fans. But what did you say once I got back on? I think I said something like "surprise, motherfucker" or something like, I don't know what I said because I was so jacked. But you said something that cracked me up. What did you say?
I'm trying to remember exactly what it was because. I can't remember. I don't care if, who else we get or whatever. Magnum's on the show. Is that what you're talking about? Or did I say?
You said something about it. Something about it. I don't care whoever's podcast out there. I don't really give a fuck about any of you anymore. We got Magnum on ours or something like that.
Kiss my ass. We got Magnum on ours. Yeah.
Yeah. Something like that. It was, but what I was going to say is, and I was going to open up with this, but I knew we'd get to it eventually because I didn't want to get it. The whole thing is that's just another reason, wrestling fans, to be listening to the Bell with Bobby Blaze podcast, because by God, we had Magnum TA on our podcast, man. In addition to everyone else, at this wonderful fucking wrestling convention, that I got to go to, that you are good to hear about. Believe me, we haven't given anything away about everyone we spoke about, and we probably left off someone. Professor's going to take a week to edit this thing down, but that's just the way it goes. So when this thing drops on this Tuesday, be prepared for the following Tuesday as well to hear some stories, from that. Jeremy, is there anything else there? Because I do have something else I want to bring up about yesterday, without just rambling on about yesterday. Is there anything else
there was
you wanted to say?
Well, there was one fun thing. I think it was with Earl. And somehow we were talking about comic book shit for a minute, and then Flash Gordon came up. And I didn't know this, but Sam Jones, who did the 1980s Flash Gordon, had been in the Time Warp as as a celebrity there. And I've actually interviewed Sam Jones at a convention before. Matter of fact, gave him a copy of a comic book that he then later met the creator of the comic book, and they discussed. But we were talking about that, and I said something about, when you went to dinner, did he have salmon? And because the one thing I noted from talking to Sam the time I talked to him, it sounds like all he eats is salmon. And,
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, and it seems like he was a little disappointed in the Ashland, Kentucky dining situation.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you don't want to eat anything out of this Ohio River over here. They catch some big-ass catfish and carp in it, but I tell you, you wouldn't want to eat fish out of this damn thing because they're laced from Pittsburgh to Cincinnati all the way down to the Mississippi with fucking, factory and industry pollution. Anyway, no, it's a beautiful river. Somewhere down through there. Anyway, no, I'm going to actually try to go get me a nice piece of salmon tonight. Our local Kroger's does have fresh seafood in. I just, for whatever reason, that's what I'm thinking. I'm going to have some because I had someone ship me some frozen fish from Omaha Steaks of all places a few weeks back, and I had some delicious Maui, a couple. Had some steak in it, of course, but also I had a couple pieces of whitefin tuna or yellowfin tuna and some salmon. So I may have that, but yeah, I think that I don't know where they went to eat, and I'm most positive the day that he was in for that might have been the day I was at another show, either Beckley or somewhere else, and I knew that you liked that guy, the Flash. So I could hear his part of it saying something about salmon because I couldn't hear the question, but he was saying something about country boys eating greasy food or something. Yeah. So I knew you kind of took it that way. No, the other thing I was going to tell you is, and I hope they do this again, guys. If you have a local, if you're listening to this program, more likely you're a damn wrestling person or a convention person or both, go out and support those things. Let me tell you, the fans, we couldn't have done this thing yesterday without the fans. And I hope and it's none of my business, but I hope they made a bunch of money, and I hope they do another one, because they're already in talks about doing one. This one was in talks for over 2.5 years, I think, as you'll find out from everything I know, because I had been asked, and then COVID come, and I was just glad to be a part of it, man. But Earl, we tried to get you out here for the big deal over in Beckley. That didn't work out. That's okay. Talking to Earl the last couple of weeks, and we did some Time Warp sponsored our podcast, and we appreciate their sponsorship for the past month or so. I think Earl's pretty sincere in wanting you to come out here if we do another one. And you and I spoke for a few minutes last night off. We texted, and I said, hey, got a couple ideas run by you. Hopefully, Jeremy, we'll get you out here to be a part of this, and you can be a part of the WrestleCon part, but also we can get together and you can do it live, remote, or however we can figure it out by that time,
Yeah.
With that said, where I was going with that at, because I know you would have a good time, I think you'd have probably left, the way our table were set up, I was facing CollarxElbow, like I said. That's my gimmick. But to the left, we had up the computers. So when I sit that direction, I'm directly across from the Time Warp. I think if their selection, they had several areas blocked off for theirs. They were, big vendor because they sponsored the motherfucker,
Yeah.
If you'd have said at the computer, I think if the computer or the interview, maybe other than Magnum or Bobby Fulton or one of those beautiful girls I had on there, and believe me, the girls I had on there were very beautiful, and I'm very thankful for that because they were kind enough to be on there. I don't think the distraction would have been any of that. I think you would have got up and went over there and stood and went through the Time Warp stuff. I saw people going through baseball cards, wrestling cards, football cards, magazines, comic books, and I said, that's where you would have been at, okay?
There's a good chance.
Toys and all that. You'd have stayed there, I think. So in addition to you coming and having a good time hosting, I tell you, I had this on my mind yesterday, and you can tell them where they can find this at. I pulled it up. I sent it to you. You said check your Twitter, and I forgot that. But Tex Johnson would have loved this. And I wanted to bring that up just because of this time of year. That's when some things started happening a couple of years ago. And, I had the pleasure of meeting him up there at the Madison, West Virginia show. We just had missed each other a few months before that at a Bobby Fulton had a fan fest up in Ohio. And Tex got there after I was leaving. We just kind of passed each other. I had to leave early that day. But anyway, nonetheless, our good friend, the late, beloved Tex Johnson, I'm not trying to bring the show down. I just wanted to bring it up for a reason because he would have loved being there yesterday as a fan, taking pictures and trying to get he's got a couple of bumpers out there. He had Ron Fuller do a bumper, Jimmy Valiant done a couple, and we still got Mick Foley. I was going to say Mick Foley went, and I still run it from time to time. Yeah. Well, what I sent you was the Freebird rule. So you put that back on Twitter. Is that how you did that?
Well, what I did was I actually uploaded it as an episode.
Okay, thank you.
A bonus episode to the podcast. I sent it to you like that. I may have tagged it to a visual as well, but I don't seem to have that in front of me.
Okay.
But what it is Tex did a skit of him.
Yes.
Of him running into Mick Foley and other people in the boiler room at Bell to Bell Towers.
Yes.
And then announcing the free word rule and who wins. Tex would occasionally send us weird little skits that he'd do.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'd hit just that one was good. It was funny, Other times he'd send shit where I'd call you and be like, what the fuck is this?
well, what I was getting at is this: the belt he would always say down in the boiler room at the Bell to Bell Towers, and I always thought of this building, the Sky Tower I mentioned, because it's the tallest building in Ashland. Okay,
okay,
that's the one that kind of come to mind. Like there's there's no Twin Towers here, but we got I got the Sky Towers, 14 stories, as I mentioned. I always thought of Tex being in a boiler room okay. But now that I went to Parsons yesterday and hearing the comments of Magnum about being on a 6th floor in a building in downtown Ashland, or a city of this size or whatever, with that many people in it. Again, thank you, wrestling fans, for coming out. I'm starting to picture Tex being in the boiler room of that building from now on. Because I know what a big Magnum TA fan he was. Bobby Fulton, I know you met Bobby and knew you was a fan of his. I know Jody Hamilton was like his all-time favorite, the assassin. But still, it was just that memory. And I wanted, when I pulled it, I went back looking for a couple different things, and I pulled up the Freebird rule, and I listened to it, and I said, man, I'm going to send it to Jeremy and see what you could do with it. I couldn't get it to send to my Twitter, so you took it. That's right. You put it as a bonus episode. So go back and give it a listen. What is it, about 4 or 5 minutes at the most?
Yeah, right about 4.5, I think.
It's really funny, man. So that give you something to do this week once you finish this podcast up. Go back and listen to Tex, our good friend, talking about that. Anyway, it probably wraps us up, Jeremy, other than probably getting a cheap book plug in here.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Plug your books.
I sold a couple books yesterday. I think I sold 2 copies of each book, and I was very pleased with that because I love getting my book out there. And if you'd like a copy of my book, what you can do is this. Go to tinyurl.com/blazebook1, and that will take you to Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boost Will Travel. And that was my very first book. And a gentleman come to my table yesterday, and he said, hey, I want one of your books. What do you suggest? And I said, I suggest Pin Me, Pay Me, because that's the first one. And he actually had his hand on it. And he said, I'll take it, sir. And signed it for him, personalized it, and all that. So that's pretty cool. If you go to tinyurl.com/blazebook2, that will take you to I Kicked Out on 2, The Educational Wrestler. And I had a lady come up to me, and she picked the book up, and she handed it to this young person. I'm going to say he was about 25 years old. And she goes, this is the one you don't have. And this guy was all excited. And she said, he read your other book in one day. And I said, okay, that's pretty damn awesome. Thank you. And he wants this one here. And I said, all right. And asked his name. She told me, and I signed it to him. And that was all good, too. So, again, that's the 2 I recall. The first one I sold of each one. Like I said, I was lucky enough to sell a couple. But anyway, go to tinyurl.com/blazebook1 and get a copy of Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boost with Travel, or go to tinyurl.com/blazebook2 and get a copy of I Kicked Out on 2, The Educational Wrestler. And there's your cheap book plugs. Thank you.
Well, there we go. That.
Yeah.
So that seemed like a fun show. Seems like they drew a good crowd. Of course,
Yep.
They do this again. I'm going to try to get out there. I just need to know a little earlier in the year when it's going to be. What was the other thing here? Let's see. Well, you know what? I think anything else I have to say about it, we can save for the episode with the actual sound clips.
Yes.
From the show. Besides, again, we had Magnum on, so, we all can kiss my ass.
Well, I'm going to say this. A lady come up to me yesterday, and I just had turned around from the computer, sat back down at my table, and was kind of just putting some things in order there. And this lady walked up the table, and she goes, man, I just want you to know that was awesome. I looked around, and one of my friends was sitting behind me. He and I had been speaking a little bit, and I mentioned him on the air. He had just come over and sat with me, front an old promoter I knew. And anyway, I said, what was that, honey? What are you talking about? And she goes, you just was on that headphone set, man, and you had the coolest voice. I had to turn back around and say, who is that over there talking? And I said, well, thank you. And what it was, and get ready for it, Jeremy. Here's what I said. As I did yesterday, I said, man, from Bluegrass Wrestling Con, this is Bobby Blaze on a Bell to Bell podcast. See you at the matches, wrestling fans. And I guess I got over loud on that, man, because I guess a few people, Didn't realize, he's finishing up a podcast or talking. Anyway, she come over and put that over big time.
Awesome.
So that's about my last one thing I want to say is we'll see you at the wrestling cons or we'll see you at the wrestling matches, fans, And as you know, I think I took the kind of a little bit of Bob Caudle with that along with some Gordon Soley and also probably a little bit of Bill Apter,
Oh, yeah.
And they all kind of had those closings of, see you at the matches, fans, something like that.
Especially Bob Caudle. That really reminds me of Bob Caudle. But
that's we talked about. That's where I got it from originally. Yeah, you know that.
Which, of course, I went and watched a bunch of Mid-Atlantic matches with Magnum. I'd forgotten or I didn't realize that they had done him squash match after squash match for several weeks going after the U.S. title. Because he was pinning people within 4 seconds,
Do you, let me ask you this, and this fresh for your mind, it's not a trick question.
Yeah.
Did you see what he was pinning them with?
Belly
the
to
move?
belly. He was
Thank you.
Belly to belly, but they were calling it a body to body.
Yeah. Well, I had and I knew Magnum was coming, but I didn't do it for this reason. I have a student that really wanted to learn this the right way, and I had went back and pulled up some of those matches where he'd done some squashes, and there's actually a deal where he's doing about 4 different guys over and over in the belly and belly on a older podcast or brought, production or something somewhere that someone done. And I went back to school, and of course, I know how to do a belly to belly. I said, but let's do this. And I showed them both ways how to put an arm under and a way over. And of course, I'm not getting there and able to do that, but I said, here's how you do it, And this person ran with it. And the other day at training, they nailed it a couple of times, like, whoa, that looked good. And so I have to say it's because I went back and done some homework and looked up belly to belly suplex. And of course, I went to the man himself, Magnum. Mm-hmm. And like you said, we had him on our podcast, by God. So look forward to that next week, wrestling fans.
Well, Bobby, I think we've gone and done about what we can here as far as a wrap-up episode.
Cool.
Did we miss anything that you did want to bring up, or
No, I hope I just didn't leave anyone out. And again, I want to thank the Time Warp at FTC Wrestling, and I want to thank you, Professor, for being on call, on standby yesterday. It seemed like it ended up being fun for both of us.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you had to put a little bit of work into it, but thank you so much. And that, make sure, I just wanted you to know, that's why I sent you that text before we even spoke. I appreciate what you done yesterday as well, because you're the big part of that, as you know. So thank you.
Yep. The only part that was kind of worrisome was when I was taking a leak one time and you're like, hey, we're coming back on. And I'm like, no, don't.
Well, I try to give you enough time to. If people would get pulled away, and like I said, I'd see someone coming and they'd get ready to get on, then they'd get sidetracked, so it all worked out, though.
Oh, yeah.
So, very good.
Yeah, because, let's see here, I would just step away for a minute sometimes and there'd be nothing.
Yeah.
And another time it's like, I just stand up and walk away and already my phone's buzzing. I'm like, fuck.
It was, but there was a lot of people there, and it really was hit and miss, I'd have people at my table for a few minutes, and then I'd like, can you get on the air? And they'd be like, yeah. And, it was just it really was just one of those things like 3 people in a row and then no one for about, I said, well, I'll be back to you about 5 or 10 minutes, So, but it was all good, man. All good. So,
well,
yeah, good deal.
I don't know that I'm going to do it. But I've been eyeballing a portable podcast studio here lately. They're about $500 or $600, and it's one that has 4 microphone slots. You can record right there. It's got a soundboard, so you can dump music and jingles and stuff in right there. You don't have to run from a computer. You can just do everything with this. I've been eyeballing it for the last month. If I do get it, that would be the perfect setup to go and do from a show,
Absolutely, man. Sounds like it. Well, we'll see what can happen on that, man, because maybe, more and more of these things, like you said, they'll do more, That's what we're hoping for. Yep. So,
hey,
all right, my man.
We need to talk to CollarxElbow. Maybe they should sponsor us for a while.
I know a lot of people that I saw yesterday are also going to WrestleCade. I'm not going to WrestleCade this year in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, but next year I may be going to that. And hopefully working out something with CollarxElbow FTC or both, depending. But yeah, I'm leaving that option open. It's a little bit far away because this one this year is this month. Yeah, at the end of this month, the day after Thanksgiving. So yeah, there are other conventions beside the Bluegrass Wrestling Con that we could possibly get involved with Collar and Elbow, with FTC or Time Warp or someone to do our podcast from. So we'll see. Oh yeah,
that'd be a lot of fun. Well, Bobby, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up here.
Sounds good.
Next week we'll probably want to record like an intro and an outro for the show, but otherwise we will just go with sound clips that we recorded yesterday. It was a good time. I'm glad everybody had a lot of fun. It sounded like a blast. I think for now I'm going to sign off. So for the late Tex Johnson, myself, Professor Jeremy Vilmur, and Arn Anderson's favorite enhancement talent, and a guy that Bobby Fulton really put over yesterday, Double B Bobby Blaze. Bye-bye, everybody.